Hi everybody, today we're going to review the multiple choice section of the benchmark exam. When you look at the cover sheet, you can see which multiple choice questions you got right and which ones you got wrong. Over here where it said for teacher use, that is where each of the points are put on for each of the different sections of the test. Your total points is out of 62. And then that is converted into a percentage based on how the Regents converts their raw score into a final score. So let's get going. So for part one, this was the multiple choice section. Number one gave us 4 different expressions. We were asked which expression or expressions resulted in an irrational number. The method here should have been to put each of the different expressions into the calculator and then compare the answers that we get in the calculator. When we look at these 4 choices, we have a fraction, a long decimal, and then 2 whole numbers. The irrational number is the decimal that does not end and does not repeat. So definitely this decimal does not end and does not repeat. A fraction is a rational number, and 5 and 12 are both rational numbers. So choice A, Roman numeral 2, is the only irrational number. Number 2, which statement is always true? So 3 of these we can sometimes have false answers. One of them is always going to be true. The one that is always true is letter B. The product of 2 rational numbers is rational. We can never get an irrational number if we multiply 2 rational numbers together. They will always be rational. Letter D is incorrect. When we add an irrational and a rational together, it's actually irrational, not rational. Letter C is not correct because if we add 2 rational numbers together, that is also a rational number, so that is incorrect. And letter A is incorrect because if we multiply 2 irrational numbers together, sometimes we get irrational, sometimes we get rational. So for example, square root of 5 times square root of 5, that answer is 5. That's not an irrational number. So this statement is not true. So letter B is the one that is always true. Number 3, we are asked which expression results in a rational number. A rational number is a decimal that ends or a fraction. So when we type in each of the expressions with the pluses and then the different numbers that we are given, we get this over here. If we just pick the one that doesn't look like the others, obviously 3 doesn't look like the others, that is the rational number. So that was square root of 4 plus square root of 1, L plus P, L plus P, oh, P plus L, they have it backwards. Number 4. When solving the equation, and then we were given the original equation, Emily wrote that equation as her first step. Which property justifies Emily's first step? So the part that we have to figure out is what did Emily do? Emily added 9 to both sides to get the 9 to cancel off, because we can see that the 9 is not there in the second equation, and the 7 turned into a 16. So the property that says it is okay to add 9 to both sides is the addition property of equality. Choice A. Number 5, when solving for the value of x in the equation, Aaron wrote the following lines on the board. Which property was used incorrectly going from line 2 to line 3? So we only care about line 2 and line 3. Everything else doesn't matter. When we look at line 2 and line 3, the parentheses are gone. Which property says the parentheses go away? Distribution. The part that they messed up was doing the 4 times the 1. They said it's 1. That's not true. Number 5. If we are being asked to solve for x, we should absolutely distribute to get rid of the parentheses. Big mistake is to think that that is a negative 12. It's actually a plus 12 because a positive times a positive is a positive. I could minus 12 to both sides, but here I added the 9 and the minus 4x together to get 5x. And then I moved the 12 to the other side. And then I canceled the 5, which leads to choice B, 12. Number 7, Rod and Reel Inc. manufactures and sells fishing rods. The company uses the equation P equals 25R minus 12,500 to estimate its profit P on the sale of R fishing rods. How many fishing rods were sold if the company made a profit of 125,000? A profit of that 125,000 means P. So the 125,000 is supposed to go where the P is. So I substitute the 125,000 where the P is and solve the remaining equation. So adding 12,500 to both sides, then dividing by 25 on both sides leads to B as an answer. Number 8. The formula for calculating velocity is v equals 1/2 at squared. What is a expressed in terms of v and t? So if we want to get that a by itself, we have to get rid of the 1/2 and the t squared. There is multiplying in between the 1/2 a and the t squared. So dividing the 1/2 and the t squared gets rid of them, so that the a is all by itself. We get v over 1/2 t squared, but that answer is obviously not there. That's because this 1/2 looks gross on the bottom of a fraction. We can't have a fraction in the bottom of a fraction. So we're going to move that 1/2 out of the denominator, up into the numerator. It does a little flippy thing when it moves up, becomes the reciprocal. A 1/2, when it flips over, becomes just a 2. 2 over 1, but the over 1 we're not going to put. We'll make that come back again. So the 1/2 goes up to the numerator as a 2, and now we can see our answer. Letter B. Number 9. The members of the senior class are planning a dance. They use the equation R equals Pn to determine the total receipts. What is N expressed in terms of R and P? So if we have the original equation and we want to get the N by itself, we must divide the P on both sides to get rid of the P, which leads to N as an answer. Not N as an answer, D as an answer. Number 10. Which graph represents the solution set of 2x minus 5 is less than 3? So we need to solve this inequality for x. We're going to start by adding 5 to get the 5 to cancel off. 2x is less than 8 is our new inequality. So divide by 2 on both sides to make the 2 cancel. We get x is less than 4. Remember, sometimes the inequality is going to flip. That is only when we divide by a negative. We divided by a positive 2, so we're not flipping the inequality. Now this inequality is a less than. Since it's x is less than, we are going to shade to the left. All of them are. 2 of them do have circles at the 4, so now it's between A and B. No line underneath this inequality means an open circle. So choice A has the open circle shaded to the left at 4. Number 11. Which of the following graphs represents the solution set? This is a distribution inequality. We must get rid of those parentheses before we can do anything else. So we distribute the -2 to the x to get -2x. -2 times -1 is a positive 2. Big mistake, that is a positive 2. Lots of different things I could have done here. I could have done add 2x to both sides. I could have done -2. I could have done add 4. But I decided to do the x, so I moved the x over. A -2x minus 1x is -3x. Subtract 2 from both sides. We get -3x is greater than -6. So we divide both sides by -3. We divided by a -3 here, which means we must flip the inequality in our answer. The answer is going to be x is less than 2. That's the graph that we're going to find. X is less than 2. It's an open circle because there's no line underneath the inequality. And we are shading to the left because x is less than 2. That is choice. I made a mistake. Did you see where I made the mistake? I just went back up and checked. Look at that. There's a line. I didn't write my line. Boy, it's a good thing I went back up and looked. So all the way through, I've got to put a line there. So I need a line here, I need a line on this inequality, it's a line on this inequality, and a line on this inequality. I always check that at the end to make sure I haven't lost a line. I lost a line right at the beginning. So now we have a closed circle at 2, shaded to the left. Closed circle at 2, shaded to the left. Number 12. We are using this diagram, this graph, to answer number 12 and 13. So number 12 says, determine the approximate interval or intervals over which the function is positive. Positive means above the x-axis. So where is the graph above the x-axis? We are at this point right here on the graph. So I'm going to label this. This is the answer for number 12. So all of these inequalities have x's. We're reading off of the x-axis. It looks like the graph starts to go above the x-axis right about 6. And then it keeps going, we can assume forever. So we need an answer that says the graph goes above the x-axis at 6 until forever. That is choice D. Number 13 says determine the approximate interval or intervals over which the function is decreasing. Decreasing means where does the graph go down? Where is the graph going down? So when we look at the graph is going down in this interval right here. Again, the x's are what we care about for the interval. So it looks like it starts going down right about 2 and then stops 4-ish, somewhere past 4. Let's see what we got for answers. It starts going down at 2-ish till about a little past 4-ish. Choice B. Number 14, calculator question. Which graph represents the equation 2x plus 3y equals 6? We go into the calculator, we go into a graph page, delete the equals, pick relation, which is this picture right here. Picked relation, I typed in the line. Here's my line. Match the picture. It looks like it goes through the x-axis at 3 and the y-axis at 2. X-axis at 3, y-axis at 2. C. Everything else does not have those nice points. We can absolutely trace the line to double check that points like these don't actually appear on that line, and they don't. Number 14. Which representations are functions? Functions mean that the x's can't repeat and the graph needs to pass the vertical line test. So we're going to look through each of these representations to figure out which ones are functions. So when we look at the first chart or table, we care about the x's. The x's cannot repeat. So immediately I see that there's a 2 in the x's more than once. Not a function. Number 2, I look at the x's. I see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So all of the x's are different. So this is a, instead of saying yes, I'm going to say this is a function. Roman numeral 3, a graph, so we use the vertical line test. If we stick a vertical line in there, does it hit more than once? Yes, it does. If it hits more than once, it is not a function. A vertical line cannot intersect a graph more than once. If it does, it's not a function. The last line, y equals 2x. Ooh, I did not already graph this in the calculator, but I should. So I'm going to go into a graphing page in the calculator. Y equals 2x. Just type in the 2x. We get that line. This is definitely a function. Straight, nice, linear line. Yes. So this is a function. So it looks like Roman numeral 2 was a function and Roman numeral 4 was a function. That is choice B. Number 16. A function is shown in the table below. If included in the table, which ordered pair would result in a relation that is no longer a function? The x's cannot repeat. If the x's repeat, it's no longer a function. So when we look at this table, we have a -4, a -1, a 0, and a 3. We're looking for one of these x's to be something that is already in the table. It looks like the only one that is already there is this 0. There's the matching 0. So letter C, if we added this to the bottom of the table, we now would have not a function because of the zeros. Number 17. Using the graph below, determine the domain of the function. The domain means left and right on a graph. So how far to the left does the graph go? How far to the right does the graph go? We read the numbers off of the x-axis because the x-axis is that axis that runs left to right. So when we look at this graph, how far to the left does the graph go? Looks like right here is the farthest to the left. On the x-axis, that is the point -3. So it's going to be one of these possible choices that start with -3. The farthest to the right that the graph goes is an arrow. That means it keeps going forever, to infinity. So that would make choice C the correct answer. We would not pick choice A because it's an arrow. If they put a circle there, sure. If there's a point at the 6, yeah, it stops, but an arrow means it keeps going forever. Number 18. If f of x equals x over x squared minus 16, then what is the value of f of negative 10? This negative 10 right here, that is the x. So we are going to substitute the negative 10 where the x's are in the function rule. So really important is the parentheses. If you do not put the parentheses and then you put squared, it will just take a 10, square it, and say, okay, 100, and then it'll think you want to just put a negative on the front of that answer. A negative 10 squared actually means negative 10 times negative 10, positive 100. 10 squared, stick a negative on the front, would look like this. Negative 10 squared would be 100. So I type this into the calculator tells me the answer. Choice B. Don't forget the parentheses. 19. The graph of y equals f of x is shown below. Which point could be used to find f of negative 4? The f of negative 4 means you're looking for negative 4 on the x-axis. So on the x-axis, I'm going to find negative 4, and I'm going to look for a point that lies on this line. The only point that's on that green line is A. What is an equation of the line that passes through the points 2, 1, and 6, negative 5? Once we get into Unit 6, we're going to do some fancy things with the calculator, and the calculator could give us this in a different way, but right now the most straightforward way to do it would be to put each of these equations into the graph and see which line has the points 2, 1, and 6, negative 5. So this line right here, the negative 3/2 times x plus 4, that's the one that had the points 2, 1, and 6, negative 5. All of the rest of the other lines, when I tried to put them into the calculator, did not have those 2 points. Has to have both of them in order to be the correct answer. The graph of the equation y equals negative 2 is a line. Okay, so I looked at what is the line y equals negative 2. It looks like this. Is it parallel to the x-axis? Remember, parallel means always the same distance apart, kind of like railroad tracks or the lines on the road. Is it parallel to the y-axis? Is it passing through the origin? Origin means that very center, 0, 0, so definitely not passing through the origin. Or is it passing through the point negative 2, 0? Negative 2, 0 would be right here, so that's a definite not. So which axis is it parallel to? Well, parallel means like railroad tracks, so this axis right here is parallel, and that is the x-axis. Final question, kind of hard, but we definitely can figure it out. So this says that the third term in an arithmetic sequence is 24. An arithmetic sequence is just a list of numbers, and in the numbers you would add a certain number to each number to get the next number. Like counting by twos, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, you're adding 2 each time. Counting by threes, 3, 6, 9, 12, you're adding 3 each time. So that's an arithmetic sequence. So we're told that the third term in an arithmetic sequence is 24, and the fifth term is 32. If the first term is called A1, so first term, hence the 1, which is an equation for the nth term of this sequence? So I made this a little more visual, and I kind of put these little boxes here to represent the 5 different numbers. I did 5 because it told me 5th term is the highest term. I have no idea what A1, A2, and A4 are, meaning the first number, the second number, the 4th number. I do know that the 3rd number is a 24, and the 5th number is a 32. So I filled those pieces into the boxes. So what I can do now is I can look at each of the possible multiple choice answers. I know that the 3rd term is 24. So that means that if I substitute all of these n's with a 3, I'm supposed to get 24. It also means that if the 5th term is 32, if I substitute a 5 where each of these n's is, I should get 32. So one of these possible choices, if I substitute a 3, I get 24. If I substitute a 5, I get 32. So I've already done that in the calculator. I just have to find the right match. I'm looking for the 3rd term to get an answer of 24. So I got a 24 right here, but it's not where I substituted a 3. So that's not it. No 24, so that's not it. No 24, so that's not it. So that leaves this pair. When I substitute a 3, I get 24. When I substitute a 5, I get 32. That is choice A, the 4 times n plus 12. So choice A is the correct arithmetic sequence, because if I substitute 3, I get 24, 5, I get 32. So that's it for the multiple choice questions. We will go over the constructed response at another time. I'm pretty sure you guys have a lot of questions for me on those questions, so I will answer those in person. Overall, they were pretty good. I'm happy with how you guys did. The grades are already in School Tool. I did those yesterday. And what else? Test tomorrow, Unit 5 test tomorrow. Make sure you bring your binder. I'm going to ask for your binders at the beginning of class so I can grade them while you're testing. Remember that binder does count as a quiz grade. So if you are not organized, please do so before tomorrow. If you don't give me your binder tomorrow, the highest you can get on it, if it's perfect, is a 75. If you want to stay after tomorrow, I will sit there and grade it with you and I'll go through it with you, okay? But try to get organized. Study. Take home your binders. They should not be on that back shelf when I come in on Friday, because you should take them home and study. I'm going to know if you didn't study if your binder is still there. All right, that's it. I'll see you guys tomorrow. Be good. If I get a good report, I'll bring you something special. Bye, guys.